History loves heroes. It loves clean timelines. It loves simple villains. Underground hates all of that. Released in 1995, at the height of global confusion about the Balkan Wars, this film does not explain history. It mocks it. This is not a war movie. It is not a political drama. It is not even satire in the safe sense. It is a funeral march for truth. Underground does not ask who was right. It asks who controlled the story. And then it shows how lies don't just start wars. They outlive them. This documentary is not about plot clarity. It's about why confusion is the point. Because Underground believes something terrifying, that people do not need truth to survive. They need belief. Fact 16. This film presents history as a never-ending performance from its opening moments. Underground frames history as theater. Characters exaggerate. Situations spiral into absurdity. Violence exists side by side with comedy. This is not tonal confusion. It is ideological intent. The film argues that history is not remembered accurately. It is performed repeatedly. Every generation reenacts trauma through myths, rituals, and propaganda. The audience is not invited to observe history objectively. They are forced to experience its distortion. Fact 15. War is shown as a business of storytelling. In Underground, weapons are important, but narratives are more powerful. Characters manipulate others not with ideology, but with stories. They decide what people know, what they fear, and what they believe is happening outside their walls. The film suggests that wars are sustained not only by guns, but by information control. Those who own the story own reality. Truth becomes optional. Loyalty becomes currency. Fact 14. The underground is a metaphor for manufactured reality. The literal underground bunker is the film's central metaphor. People live below ground for decades, believing a war that has already ended is still raging. This is not about ignorance. It is about curated ignorance. The film shows how isolation combined with selective information creates a reality stronger than facts. The underground becomes a world where belief replaces evidence, and once belief hardens, truth becomes irrelevant. Fact 13. Humor is used to make lies palatable. One of the most disturbing elements of Underground is its humor. Scenes are funny, absurd, entertaining. And that is exactly the danger. The film uses laughter to lower defenses. It shows how lies survive longer when they are amusing. Comedy becomes anesthetic. It allows people to accept cruelty, manipulation, and absurdity without resistance. The film warns that when politics becomes spectacle, truth becomes optional. The lie is more comfortable than truth. By the end of part 1, one thing is clear. This film is not trying to teach history. It is trying to expose how history is manufactured. The lie does not begin with hatred. It begins with convenience. In part 2, we go deeper. We'll explore propaganda as daily life, how reality is engineered, and why people choose illusion over freedom. Because in Underground, the most dangerous prison is the one you believe in. By now, the lie has already taken root, not through force, not through fear alone, but through repetition. The people underground are not chained. They are convinced, and that distinction is everything. Because Underground is not about deception imposed. It is about deception maintained. Fact 12. Propaganda works best when it feels routine. One of the film's most unsettling insights is how propaganda blends into daily life. There are no dramatic speeches or visible censorship boards underground. Instead, information arrives casually, through conversations, jokes, rehearsed stories. The lie is not announced. It is normalized. Over time, it stops feeling like manipulation and starts feeling like common sense. The film shows that propaganda is most effective when it becomes boring, when people stop questioning not because they agree, but because they are used to it. Fact 11. Information control creates emotional dependence. Those living underground rely completely on a single source for news. This dependence is not just intellectual, it is emotional. Their fear, hope, pride, and sense of purpose all come from the same storyteller. The film exposes how control over information becomes control over identity. People begin to measure themselves through the narrative they are given. Loyalty replaces curiosity. Doubt becomes betrayal. Reality narrows until only one version of truth feels safe. Fact 10. The film shows how people choose comfort over freedom. One of the most disturbing realizations in Underground is that the lie persists not only because it is enforced, but because it is comforting. Life underground has rules, structure, purpose. Above ground is chaos, uncertainty, moral complexity. The film suggests that many people do not want truth if it threatens their identity. Freedom demands responsibility. Illusion demands obedience. And obedience is easier. The bunker becomes less a prison and more a refuge from ambiguity. 9. Reality is not destroyed. It is replaced. Underground does not show truth being erased. It shows it being outperformed. The fabricated story is more exciting, more heroic, more emotionally satisfying than reality ever was. As a result, truth becomes irrelevant. The film argues that lies do not win by silencing facts. They win by making facts feel small, dull, and unnecessary. Once a fictional reality fulfills emotional needs, the real one no longer matters. The Willing Prison. By the end of Part 2, the film's argument sharpens. People are not trapped underground by walls. They are trapped by belief. The lie no longer needs protection. It protects itself. In Part 3, the consequences deepen. We'll explore identity collapse across generations, nationalism as inherited mythology, and why the conflict never actually ends. Because in Underground, history doesn't move forward. It loops. By now, the lie is complete. Not because it is perfect, but because it has become inherited. Children are born into it. Adults age inside it, and memory itself begins to change shape. This is where Underground becomes most disturbing, because it stops being about deception and becomes about identity. 8. Identity in the film is built from fiction, not experience. In Underground, people define themselves through stories they never lived. Their sense of heroism, sacrifice, and belonging is shaped entirely by narratives passed down to them. The underground residents believe they are veterans of a war that no longer exists. Their identity is not based on reality but on repetition. The film shows how identity becomes performative, a role maintained for coherence rather than truth. Once identity is constructed this way, challenging the lie feels like an attack on the self. Fact 7. Nationalism is portrayed as an inherited delusion. The film presents nationalism not as political belief, but as emotional inheritance. It is learned unconsciously, passed like a family trait. Songs, rituals, slogans, and enemies are inherited before critical thinking ever begins. The film suggests nationalism survives because it offers simple answers to complex histories. It divides the world into us and them without requiring understanding, and because it is inherited, it feels natural, even inevitable. Fact 6. The film argues that war continues after peace is declared. One of Underground's most devastating ideas is that war does not end when treaties are signed. It ends only when belief systems collapse. In the film, peace arrives above ground, but below, the war narrative continues uninterrupted. This exposes a brutal truth. Conflict can survive without enemies, without weapons, and without reason. As long as people believe they are at war, they will behave accordingly. War becomes a state of mind, not a historical event. Fact 5. Time loses meaning inside a myth. As years pass underground, time becomes irrelevant. Decades blur. Generations overlap. The characters lose any external reference point to measure reality. The film uses this temporal distortion to show how myths suspend time. When history becomes circular, progress becomes impossible. The future is always postponed. The past is always present. And society remains frozen inside a story that refuses to end. History as a closed loop. By the end of Part 3, the film's warning is unmistakable. When lies become identity, truth becomes destruction. When myths replace memory, history stops moving. In Part 4, we reach the final reckoning. We'll explore the film's controversial ending, why the cycle never truly breaks, and why Underground still divides audiences decades later. Because this story does not end with resolution, it ends with repetition. By now, the lie has done something irreversible. It has survived exposure. It has survived time. It has survived truth itself. This is where Underground stops being a story and becomes a diagnosis, because the film's final act does not ask how the lie began. It asks something far more disturbing. What if the lie never ends? Fact 4. The film's ending refuses to break the cycle. Most historical films move toward resolution. A lesson is learned. A mistake is acknowledged. A chapter closes. Underground does the opposite. Its ending does not heal history. It repeats it. The final images suggest separation, rebirth, and renewal. But they are fragile, almost mocking. The land itself fractures, drifting away like memory untethered from responsibility. The film implies that history does not correct itself. It simply rearranges its symbols. The same characters, the same myths, the same songs, only the context changes. There is no escape hatch, only continuation. Fact 3. No character is fully innocent, and that is the point. Audiences often search for moral anchors in political films. Heroes, villains, victims. Underground denies all three. Every character participates in the lie. Some by creating it, some by spreading it, some by choosing not to question it. The film refuses to simplify guilt. It suggests that systems of deception do not survive on villains alone. They survive on participation. This is deeply uncomfortable because it removes moral distance between the audience and the story. The film does not allow viewers to say, "I would have known better." It shows how easily survival, loyalty, and identity can override truth. Fact 2. The film treats history as a self-feeding machine. One of Underground's bleakest claims is that history does not need intent to repeat itself. It needs habit. Narratives feed new narratives. Trauma feeds mythology. Mythology feeds violence. Violence feeds new trauma. The machine does not stop because no one knows how to turn it off. The film suggests that even when lies are exposed, they are rarely dismantled. They are rebranded, reframed, absorbed. Truth does not defeat falsehood. It is often absorbed by it. Fact 1. Underground is not about Yugoslavia. It is about humanity. Although rooted in Balkan history, Underground refuses to be confined to geography. The film is not saying this happened there. It is saying this happens everywhere, whenever history is simplified, whenever identity is built on myth, whenever people choose belonging over truth. The underground is not a place. It is a condition, a psychological state where reality becomes negotiable and belief becomes law. That is why the film still unsettles audiences decades later. Because it does not age, it repeats. Why this film still divides the world. Underground is loved and hated for the same reason. It refuses to take sides. It does not flatter ideology. It does not offer moral comfort. It does not explain who was right. Instead, it asks a question most political cinema avoids. What if everyone is complicit? For some viewers, this feels dishonest. For others, it feels unforgivable. But the film insists that truth is rarely clean enough to be comforting. What becomes clear with distance? Bonus fact 1. The film grows more disturbing with time because its warning feels increasingly familiar. Bonus fact 2. Comedy becomes harder to laugh at once. Its purpose becomes clear. Bonus fact 3. The underground stops feeling symbolic and starts feeling universal. Bonus fact 4. The film's chaos mirrors how history is actually remembered. Loud, selective, emotional. Underground does not believe in progress. It believes in repetition. It does not ask us to fix history. It asks us to recognize how eagerly we inherit lies. And it leaves us with one of cinema's most devastating truths: that the most dangerous stories are not the ones forced upon us, but the ones we choose to keep telling because they make us feel whole. If this film unsettled you, it's because it wasn't talking about the past. It was talking about now. And if you're drawn to cinema that interrogates power, memory, and belief, this channel is for you. Subscribe for documentaries that don't explain history. They expose how it survives. Before you go, answer honestly. If a lie gives people purpose, is truth still worth the cost? Leave your answer in the comments.